Okay, I want to call our Select Board meeting on Tuesday, September 19, 2023, to order. The hour is 7 p.m. I'd like to invite everyone in the room to please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's get into our agenda. The first item we have tonight is an opportunity for any residents in the room to offer any commentary. I don't see anyone rising, so we'll move forward to our new business. The first item to address is the approval of Halloween trick-or-treat hours. They are scheduled for 6 to 8 p.m. Is that actually on Halloween, Mr. Montori? Do you know? That's October 31st. 6 to 8 p.m.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion was offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland for our record keeper. And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a unanimous 5-0 vote. Item number 2 pertains to bond sale. I'll turn it over to Mr. Montori, who will give the background, and then we have some very specific actions that we have to take this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering, since the new business doesn't have any order of time, did you want to do the warrant articles first and let the Conservation Chair and Conservation Administrator get theirs done, and then they can leave? Because the rest will take, by the time we get done with the rest, they'll be sitting here.
No problem, we'll do that. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. All right, so let me take you to item number 3, and you'll all remind me to come back to number 2. All right, so we'll look at the warrant, and just for the benefit of the public, I know warrants have been mailed. They've been received, I think, in the last couple of days at people's registered address. The town meeting is scheduled for October 3rd at 7 p.m. at Tewksbury Memorial High School. Finance Committee public hearing is scheduled for September 25, next week, here in this room at 7 p.m., or at least in the town hall at 7 p.m. So we will go through the warrant articles, and as is customary, the Select Board will offer its recommendations to town meeting through votes after any discussion and questions. So, Mr. Montori, you want to narrate this for us? I guess Article 1, let me start with that. Article 1 is a raise and appropriate article to add funds to FY 2024 budgets, and these are additional funds that are being requested due to increased local revenue.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, and I'm just going to pass out a document for the board to review. This is a document, actually, I'm going to try to see if I can connect.
Thank you.
Put it online for.
Oh, here we go.
For those who are at home who might have interest, historically, when anyone presenting has used projection equipment, we've all had to turn around. These screens in front of us allow us to see exactly what's on the screen behind us at this point, so we'll make our meetings a little more efficient. So I just want to note that as they're new, and I'm sure folks have some interest in why we might be partially obscured, but this is actually a great tool.
So we have an additional $1,210,393 to raise and appropriate into FY '24 budgets. Article 1 does just that. Before I go into a summary of each of the items, the reason why we have the additional funding is on this document I just passed out. So to start with, under the appropriations that we projected for FY '24, our cherry sheet offsets, which are essentially our public library funding that we get from the state, we have to raise and appropriate it, and then we get reimbursed by the Commonwealth. It was projected to be $64,431, and it actually was $72,002, which was a change of $7,571. When I developed the budget, I projected state and county charges to increase 10% to $2,021,605. When the state completed its FY '24 budget in July, our assessments were actually $1,839,524. That saved the town, from an appropriation standpoint, we were able to reduce those charges down $182,081. So our net appropriations actually decreased from what was originally projected by $174,510. In addition to that, on the revenue side, new growth is going to come in higher by $800,000. The chief assessor informed me that our original projection of $1.2 million can increase to approximately $2 million, and maybe a little bit higher than that when she's done. But that's because of the work that National Grid has done in town, increased their value, and we had an additional $800,000 in new growth. I'll get that breakdown once new growth is certified. But that's the projection at this point. Our state aid, when I developed the budget, I level funded our state aid projection to what we received in FY '23. That was $17,924,517. When the budget was finalized by the House and Senate and signed by the governor, the state aid was actually $18,210,972. And that was a change of $286,455. Our local receipts, when I had a chance to look at what we collected in FY '23 at the end of the fiscal year compared to what I projected, I actually adjusted our local receipts down $50,572. And if you look at the sheet on your screen, it just gives you an idea in yellow what I changed. I reduced our motor vehicle excise tax down. I changed it from 90% of the FY 5-year average for FY '18 through '22 to the 90% of the FY average for FY '19 through '23. So that lowered it a little bit from my original projection. I also adjusted other excise, which is basically a boat excise, to what we actually collected. I adjusted our penalties and interest to a payment in lieu of taxes, rather, to reflect what we take in from the Housing Authority for Delaney Drive area. It fluctuates each year. They are late in some of the payments because they have to do some audit work. So I just reduced it to what we know we actually will get in a given fiscal year. I also reduced fees. The original projection was 90% of a 5-year average without police detail administration fees in there. I actually took 90% of the FY '23 actual, and without police administrative fees in there. The police detail administrative fees is the 10% we collect on police details, and we're seeing that reduce each year, not because there are less details in town, but because they're town details, and we don't charge for town details. So a lot less private work going on in town. And then under fines and forfeitures, I reduced that to 90% of the FY '23 actually instead of the 90% of FY '22. So that's where the change in revenue came from in local receipts. The process we went through is similar to what we've done in other fiscal years, where we adjust our revenue projections as well as our state aid and new growth projections once we have a better idea. So going back to Article 1, any questions on that?
No.
So going back to Article 1, there are some items here, let's go through quickly. The town manager salaries, we need to increase $31,767 because of retirement incentive and longevity incentive that is due the assistant town manager who's planning to retire in a few years, so we need to fund that. Town manager professional salaries need to increase $46,172 to fund our permitting software for local gov, to have online permitting for our Board of Selectmen licensing, as well as business permits for the business certificates for the town clerk. That was approximately $31,000. And then another $15,000 was added for the removal of a tank at 283 Pleasant Street. We cleaned that lot up. We removed a tank, an underground storage tank. We had grant funding to do that, but the tank was full of, I think, grade 2 fuel. And to get rid of that is $15,000, which we didn't project in the grant. So we're gonna fund that. But once that's cleaned up, we'll sell that lot for a very good price, because you can put probably 2 houses on that. And we already have authority to do that. Funding for $9,000, funding for computer services. We have an intern that has been working in computer services, so the $9,000 will fund the intern salary. $12,650 for elections, town meeting capital outlay. That is for poll pads for elections. We're going to purchase 8 poll pads. So we, in that item. Community development professional services, $7,000 for our sailor of weights and measures contract that we have with NIMCOG, that increased this year. Building maintenance for the police department, $35,000. The chief in the department did a lot of renovation within the department over the summer, changing offices around, adding new rugs and painting. He wasn't going to seek funding in his maintenance account. He was going to see how he did throughout the year, but I know he's going to run short, so I added the 35. Fire capital outlay, $45,778 for 1 new portable electronic stretcher for the department. Currently, the department has 3 stretchers, 1 for each ambulance. We're getting a new ambulance this year. The new stretcher will be for the new ambulance. We're going to keep 4 ambulances. We're going to have the new ambulance, 2 frontline ambulance, or 3 operational ambulances in each station, 1 backup, and then a backup to all the ambulances in case one goes down. And they'll all have their own stretcher. We're also funding, as part of the amount, for stair chairs, which allows them to come downstairs when they are taking a patient out. And we're purchasing 5 gas meters for them to use in the department. We sought grant funding for the 5 gas meters, but we were not approved. Under professional services, we're looking to fund the stretcher maintenance for each of the stretchers that we have, or for the new stretcher that we have. And we're looking to purchase an overtime tracking software for the firefighters. We also have a grant match that we're funding, $26,550 for a grant that we received for training and wellness. It was approximately $75,000. This is our match for the grant. School health insurance, $50,000. After looking at the enrollment for school health insurance, additional funds were needed in the health insurance account. They actually ran right to budget, if not a little bit over last year in their health insurance. So when I looked at it, I felt $50,000 was needed to make sure they can make it this fiscal year. There could be changes throughout the year that the $50,000 may not be enough, but just new enrollment into the health plans. We have a lot of people that are under the age of 26 that work for us, that when they hit 26, they come off their parents' plans, so that's always hard to figure out or project. Engineering, roadway resurfacing, we're looking to fund $450,000 for DPW engineering for roadway resurfacing for the rest of this fiscal year. Just to give you an idea, and I'll send this to the board later, so you have this to keep this for yourselves. We're looking at paving Ronald Drive, Dudley Road, Davis Road, Durham Road, Durham Circle, Hinckley Road, Florence Avenue, Karen Lee Street, Waterford Meadow Drive, Trollbrook Lane, Guile Avenue, Hood Road, and Claiborne. So those are the streets that we'll be going after, and I'll send that list to the board. Also, we're looking at $350,000 for sidewalks. The sidewalk money will be used to repair some sidewalks and fund new sidewalks. We're looking at Chandler Street from the library entrance to East Street, 1,600 feet. And we're looking at Pleasant Street from Ryan, from the Ryan Center School to Town Hall Avenue, about 950 feet. And this is in addition to the money we already have that we're working on doing a sidewalk for Whipple Road. COA capital
Mr. Chairman?
outlay.
Ms. Wellman?
Just because you're on this topic, I just, a quick question for you, Mr. Montori. Does that additional funding include any of the funding for sidewalk design?
Sidewalks in.
Design, for like the upcoming parts of the cap, like as?
No,
That's already planned in the
It's already
funding?
planned, yep.
Okay, thank you.
The Council on Aging capital outlay, the senior center director has requested a new sign for the front of the building that we currently have. You have to manually put in any type of events or advertisements or things they want to mention. This will be an electronic sign like we have in the center of town that they can do from their office and have multiple items on the sign. The library is requesting the same thing in their capital outlay. The difference between both signs is the COA sign is a two-sided sign and the library is a one-sided sign. That's why it's cheaper. If you look at the library, it just has one facing side. And then facilities and grounds, capital outlay, the director is looking for a lawnmower for the department. Even though we have someone contracted to cut the lawns for us, our staff does supplemental cuts and a new lawnmower is needed. So those are all the items listed. Of the items listed, $1,063,271 are for one-time purchases. So not all of them will be built into the budget. We'll be able to utilize that additional funding to help us get through the FY25 budget process when we start that at the end of October, November. That's it.
Okay, do my colleagues have any questions on any of that detailed information for the town manager?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Mackey?
Through you to the town manager. So, Mr. Montori, you said something very important at the end of that. A lot of these items are getting us ahead on our next budget cycle.
Correct.
So we should be able to have a much easier discussion. A lot of these items that we discuss every year during budget season, we were able to get a little bit ahead so we can plan for the future. So
Exactly. It
Thank
gives us, we didn't build it into the budget long-term. We set the money. We really focused on one-time items, and we can adjust when we go into the next budget.
Thank you.
Okay,
We also, just one last thing, we also prioritized, a good portion of it, 800,000 of the 1.2 is going towards roads and sidewalks, which have always been a priority.
thank you. All right, if there are no further questions on that, let me ask if there's a motion to recommend adoption of the article.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion's made by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. That's 5-0 for the record. Article 2 transfers funds from the certified general fund free cash for specific one-time capital expenditures. And
have
I'll
another
let the
handout
town
for the
manager
board.
speak to this.
So free cash is not certified at this time. The balance sheet has been submitted. We are awaiting certification, but I'm going to go to passing out a handout. Now, this is, I'm going to stress, these are unaudited numbers. These are not the balance sheet. So I just want to give you an idea what will go into free cash and our retained earnings, because we'll be talking about retained earnings. So for general fund free cash, it's made up mainly of budgets that are turned back at the end of the year and additional revenue beyond what we projected. So when you look at this sheet, starting just with the general fund, we turn back in budgets about $3.9 million at the end of FY '23. Now, it's important to note, of that amount, the 3.9, it's not because we over budgeted, because there were certain large expenditures that didn't take place last year. So for instance, we did not spend principal and interest because we didn't borrow for the DPW. We had set aside $816,000 in principal for the DPW project, and because we didn't borrow the money, we didn't spend the money. We also set aside $876,000 in interest payments for the DPW school facility. We didn't spend it because we didn't borrow the money. So out of the $3.9 million, 1.6, close to 1.7 million was not spent because of the DPW project. Also, on the town side, our health insurance, because we projected X amount of subscribers and we didn't hit that projection, turned back at $308,000. And each year that fluctuates, as we see with the schools this year. So now you're at $2 million just with those three items. The RECC assessment, we turned back $402,000 because we received a grant that helped pay for our assessment. So we budget for it because we want to plan for the future, but we didn't spend it. That was another $400,000. So those were some of the larger items that we didn't spend money on. We turned back $210,000 in snow and ice because we transferred in all of our remaining free cash for any snow and ice deficits. We didn't spend it all. That was $210,000, but we know snow and ice changes in each year. And then the last one is veterans benefits. We didn't pay out as much this past year. That was $164,000. So those are some of the larger items that we had of the 3.9 million. Those won't be the same in FY '24 when we close out budgets, but those just give you an indication. So when you look at just those two, and then when you look at the additional revenue, the 5.5 million and the 3.9 million, free cash could be upwards of $9.5 million. Now, we don't know what the Department of Revenue will do when they put their formula together. They deduct from our fund balance. When they look at the balance sheet, they may change some other areas, but we should have a healthy free cash number, which is a good sign for the town. And I'm just giving you an idea that it could be somewhere in that area when you look at the two major funding sources for free cash. So when you go back to Article 2, because free cash isn't certified, the board can decide to make the vote contingent on free cash being certified, or you could table it to the night of town meeting. But there are several items that we would like to fund. The first is police station lockers for the locker room at the police station. Within the last year, we actually funded new lockers at the station. We funded approximately $80,000 for new lockers. Might have been closer to $9,000. But when we actually went and looked at the price of lockers and the type of lockers that were needed, we didn't have enough money. To get the lockers that the department needs and wants and that other police departments have purchased is $265,000. So the amount that we're seeking out of free cash is the balance between what we have left, what we've originally funded for lockers, and what's needed to get lockers that the department has requested. Also, we're looking at a aerial lift, a cherry bucket truck. to replace the one that we have. This is one that we use on the road by the tree department, and it assists other departments in the town. We do have recently purchased a bucket truck that was used for off-road, that we transport to different locations. It goes into off-road areas for work. This is for on-road work by the department. Also, we're looking at a dump truck to replace a 1997 model Mack dump truck that we have that is used for snow and ice operations. The truck has reached its lifespan, being a 1997 truck, and we want to replace it, especially for our snow operations. We also want to repair and replace some parts of our fuel island that we have. We actually funded work to be done on the island within the last year, approximately $50,000. When we started getting prices and looking at what needed to be done, we didn't have enough money, so an additional $100,000 is needed for the fuel island. It's used on a daily basis by all of our departments, DPW, police, and fire. It's outdated. The equipment is nearing its useful life. And some of the pumps, because of how outdated it is, haven't worked, and we can't have that happen for any of our vehicles that are utilizing it. So that's what we're seeking to use free cash. The plan would be to fund these items. Whatever's remaining of free cash in a later article, we transfer it into the stabilization fund.
Okay. Any of my colleagues have questions about the specific purposes or uses that are being proposed?
I just have one question. On the police lockers, how many lockers are we talking?
Hold on, I have the right. Oh, 1 second.
$265,000 for lockers. Yeah, I hear you.
$97.
97. And is there something special, these armored lockers, or?
Pass a picture around of what they look like. So they're lockers that fit all the gear that they have. Also has a place that you can lock your gun.
That was
Yeah.
actually what I'm referring
Yep.
to.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
here you go.
Thank you.
All right, you have a question, Ms. Wellman?
Yes, through you to the town manager. I know you haven't done all of the amounts yet, but since we're talking about free cash, how much is in free cash do you think there will be if these numbers were true? I know they're unaudited for the total amount, and also in the stabilization fund.
So right now, we don't have any money in our free cash.
Okay,
We-
you spent it down?
So what we usually do, we put it in the stabilization fund, goes in the fund, the fund collects its own interest, stays with the fund, and it's also a better control, it's a 2/3 vote, take out, town meeting has more control of that, it seems to be better. So we only keep at the beginning of a fiscal year, or when we go to town meeting in October, we transfer the balance of free cash into the stabilization fund that we didn't use on items like in Article 2.
Yep,
We also set aside $600,000 of free cash.
Snow and ice.
Because we know we're going to have a problem with snow and ice.
Yep.
It's just too unpredictable. Now, if we don't need it, we don't spend it, and it gets turned back, but that's what we do.
okay.
So right now, the balance in our stabilization fund is $12,486,559. Now, and I just want to state, everything I'm giving you for numbers tonight, everything I'm giving you for explanations is going to be in a handout for town meeting, so you will get all this information.
Yeah,
But that's what the balance is. I'm hoping that if we use the $9.5 million in free cash, and we spend what I hope we can spend at town meeting, which is the $651,948 that we just talked about, $3.3 million on the DPW school facility, that we transfer 5.5 to maybe higher into the stabilization fund, which will give us a little over $18 million, maybe more. Again, I don't know what free cash is going to be. It could be higher than the 9.5. We got a lot of grant money in this year that will go towards that. I just won't know until DOR certifies it. This just gives you an idea of the two major areas.
Thank you, that's exactly what I was looking for, I appreciate that and the explanation.
We could see another $1 million. We don't know.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's get it up to 20
Fantastic.
million, that'll be fabulous.
Okay, so let me, I think we have a couple of these articles where, because of the uncertainty of free cash, the board needs to, rather than perhaps take a motion to recommend or not recommend an article, if you're so inclined to recommend it, we may want to make it contingent on the certification of free cash, so we have available funds. Or in the alternative, as the town manager suggested, we could table the matter to the 3rd prior to the town meeting. And I'm happy to do either. It just depends on the preference of the board. So if someone has a strong opinion one way or the other, I'd ask you to speak up, and we'll take any votes the rest of this meeting associated with free cash in the same way.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions on that before we vote on it as well. So we have a dump truck that we're purchasing that's replacing a 1997. Sounds like it's well needed. But each year we come in front of the board and we're told that the trucks are going to be well maintained, parked inside, they won't be left out in the elements. But yet we go to town meeting and the first thing they tell us is that we need a new DPW because all the trucks are parked outside. So we're making an investment of $125,000. Which is it? Are we parking them inside the new vehicles? Are we not leaving them outside? It's just, I want to know that if we have older vehicles or that needs to maintenance or whatever it may be, it just, we can't say one thing and then go to the residents and say the total opposite again.
No, and I apologize if that was said. I apologize for that. I must have misspoke. So right now, we don't have enough room to house all our vehicles.
Yeah, you know.
The hope is we can build a new DPW facility that houses all but a few, right? And we could talk about that in a few minutes, but we usually keep our older vehicles outside, the ones that aren't being used as often. You know, we do have some older trucks that just do sanding, or just do plowing, or just are the older vehicles. We try to keep, the plan is always to keep the newer ones in and make sure those don't get hurt by the elements. And we would continue to do that. And when we build a new facility, we'll be able to put more inside.
And is there, like, I never see anything under the budget for putting like some sort of temporary shelter over something or anything like that to put things under there.
Yeah.
If you got older vehicles and they're sitting out there in the elements and they're not only being used 4 or 5 months a year and they're sitting there, they're not going to be very good for very long.
Yep.
And every year, we're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars replacing vehicles. So I understand, I want to have vehicles that maintain, but I also want to make sure that we have places to store them, and if not, get some sort of temporary, even if we need to use the firehouse down here, put some vehicles inside there or whatever it is that's not being used.
So the firehouse right now is being used by the schools, so that is occupied. We can look into temporary shelter. We never really talked about it, but we can look into it. I don't know what that would take, how much it would cost, but we can definitely look into that.
Yep. The other thing is the repair and the replace of the fuel islands. Is that at the DPW?
It's at the DPW, yeah.
Okay, so if we're to replace the DPW, is all this going to be torn out?
That's never been part of it.
Okay, so this is,
Totally separate.
so there's no,
With no
this will
plans.
not be torn out
Nope.
if we build a new DPW?
No, we
Okay.
kept it separate.
Okay, that's what I
Because if
need
the
to know.
DPW didn't go forward, we knew we needed to do this, so we kept it separate.
Yep, okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, let me go back to my original question. Does the board have a preference about tabling these articles or taking action contingent on the certification?
I'd like to,
Mr. Holland?
I'd like to table it until the.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that?
No, I think we should approve it conditionally. That was going to be what I said, Patrick. My only argument for that is just to, obviously, if it's not certified, then, we'd have to address that at the same meeting the night before anyway. But I think it's good to give the finance committee and the public a sense that the select board is in favor of this once these numbers are, going forward now, rather than wait. That's only my only sense.
Yeah, there's only two.
And we're all
items.
here right now versus somebody might get sick or whatever else. That's my only thought, sir.
Okay, so let me ask if there's a motion for one version or the other. We'll take a vote.
I'll make a motion to table.
Okay, all right. Is there?
I'll second that
All
motion.
right, so we have a motion by Mr. Holland, seconded by Mr. Kratman, to take the action of tabling any articles related to free cash at this, for purposes of tonight's meeting. All those in favor of that action, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
And I'm going to be opposed too. So that's 3-2, so that would prevail. So I'll ask now if there's a motion on Article 2 to table it to October 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, I will vote in the affirmative this time, so that's 4-1 in favor of tabling to October 3rd. Okay, Article 3 also would potentially transfer the sum of $3.3 million from certified free cash for purposes of design, engineering, construction, and renovation of the DPW school maintenance facility. You want to speak to that, Mr. Montori?
Yes, so we opened bids over the past few weeks for the DPW project, and just want to unhook this for a second. And the base bid for the project came in within budget. But we did have alternate bids for the project that, there were 3 of them. One was to move all of the offices in the current DPW building into the new building. The plan originally was, because of funding, to only move a few offices and the school offices in there. But most of the DPW office staff was going to stay in the old building. So bid alternate 1 was to move all the offices out of the old building and into the new building. Bid alternate 2 was going to add additional vehicle storage space to the building. And Article 3 was to buy additional equipment maintenance for the building that was just additional equipment. It wasn't something that was essential, that was needed for immediate use. So the base bid came in within budget, and bid alternate number 1 was $2.9 million. Because we knew we would have a healthy free cash number, and because we knew getting the offices out of the old building and into the new building was a good idea and the right thing to do, because that building is just in terrible shape, that I was going to bring it to town meeting and seek approval from town meeting to get the additional funding to do the base bid plus alternate 1 only. The reason why it's 3.3 instead of 2.9 is just contingency. So that's the reason. So if it fails and town meeting doesn't want to go that step, we have enough money to move forward and do the base bid of the project, which is new storage, new building maintenance, some of the offices moving over, renovations to the current facility for storage of vehicles and equipment, and a wash bay. So this is just to fund alternate 1 of the project.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Montori, you had stated earlier that the $2.2 million that is all returned. We didn't spend any of that money from
Correct.
the Article 6 of,
Yep. It's going into free cash. Yep.
okay. So that's including the $350 from the Water and the Sewer Enterprise Fund as well?
Water and sewer, When you say 350, meaning,
Well, that's how the article read in
Oh.
2019. You were taking 350 out of water and sewer,
yep,
and then
So-
you were taking 700 from free cash. So that's all, that $2.2 million is not being added to the 3.3.
correct.
Okay? That's all the questions I have.
Okay, anyone else?
Now, Mr. Chairman, I just want to go on the record as, I know that the board is going to vote to table this based on the agreement we just done, but I wanted to just go on the record saying that I support this article strongly. I think it's important to have all of the people in the new building. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so as per our vote on Article 2, this involves free cash here in Article 3, and since we don't have a firm number that's certified, may I ask for a motion to table Article 3 until October 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, for the record, it's motion offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I vote in the affirmative as well, so that's 5-0. And I want to echo Ms. Wellman's remarks. I do wholeheartedly support that article. Article 4. This article allows the town to utilize funds from sewer retained earnings for capital equipment and improvements.
So similar to free cash, we do not have retained earnings certified at this time. And the sheet that I handed out just gives you an idea of what sewer and water retained earnings are going to be. So for the sewer enterprise fund, we had turnbacks in FY23 of $205,699. We had additional revenue in sewer rates of $997,666 for a potential retained earnings of $1,203,365. Now, again, when DOR does its formula, it makes its adjustments for receivables and other areas. This could change, but that gives you an idea of the two major areas that would fund sewer retained earnings. Now, the additional sewer rates of $997,000 in revenue that we took in, if you remember, last year was a very dry year. So a lot of people, when they use of water, whether it's watering lawns or pools, if they don't have second meters, they get charged sewer also. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year. And we are watching our rates closely. The other thing with sewer retained earnings, and we'll talk about it with water, it's cumulative year to year. We do not put this money into a stabilization fund. We keep it set aside because if you do have a bad year with collections, it helps offset that. So right now, the unaudited amount we have in the sewer retained earnings is $4,789,107. Any retained earnings that we get in FY23 will be added to that, and that will be certified by the Department of Revenue. Both numbers will be recertified into one number. The important part about sewer retained earnings, it not only helps our capital, but we use a decent amount of money, anywhere from $700,000 to $900,000 a year, to help offset the high debt in sewer that we have. And that helps us maintain rates at a stable amount. So in Article 4, we have a couple of items that we want to buy for sewer retained earnings. We want to purchase an air compressor, sharing the cost, 50% of the cost with water, and sewer picking up the other 50%. So the total amount is $35,000 for the compressor. It's a tow-behind air compressor. We're replacing a 1999 model for the departments. It's used for water and sewer divisions for various work. Accessing, operating gate valves, repairing water main breaks. Recently, the current air compressor recently stopped working, and the repair is just not worth it. So we need a new one. In addition, they want to purchase a 10-wheel dump truck to replace what is known as Truck 89, which is a 2010 model Mack dump truck, which is used as a frontline vehicle for water and sewer division, including water main breaks, and it does assist in snow plowing. The vehicle had extensive engine work over the last year due to coolant leak in the engine, and it's just shortened the life of the vehicle. I should have mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why we're seeking these trucks also is it's taking much longer to get them.
Yeah.
So we want to get ahead of it. So these aren't trucks we're going to have in the next year. You know better than anybody. You're not getting these trucks within the next year. It's taking longer than that. So we want to get ahead of it by getting these trucks. So that's what we're taking, using sewer retained earnings for. Because there's a balance in retained earnings of $4.7 million, you don't need to make a contingent. You can actually make a decision tonight if you want to utilize the retained earnings.
Okay, let me ask if there's questions on these two items.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Through you to the town manager, question and a comment. First, I know we're every few years, or actually every town meeting, we're looking at a new vehicle. They need what they need, understood, and especially because our DPW building is so overdue that we have had vehicles outside. Do we have some sort of projection on, similar to the fire department, where we asked about the engines when we were getting the new engine? Do we have some sort of projection on the expected life of these vehicles and when we will need to start replacing these in the future?
Let me get it. I'll get you that. I don't have it right off the top of my head.
Thank you. And the comment was, and I know it's too late for this warrant, but we may want to look at for next budget, including that special pump that kind of saved the day with Ames.
If we're looking at that.
I know we got lucky being able to find one in a neighboring state, not even a neighboring town. And because we know we have a significant portion of our water infrastructure that needs to be replaced, it would be unfortunate if we had an issue and we're not able to get a device like that to do a workaround, so.
No, that's a great point. We actually started talking about that to determine if we need that particular pump or a different pump. We had the company that actually built the pump and repaired the pump for us on occasions, spec out what we might need. What we're going to look at also, and this may be the way to go, I've talked to the other area town managers, and we've talked about jointly purchasing unique equipment that we don't need all the time and housing it either one of our DPWs or spreading the equipment out. So when one of us does need it, it's available. We're not burdening a community that does have it for whatever reason, because it is unique that we'll need it. And there seems to be interest in that. So we're going to pursue that between now and the end of the next budget cycle.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, may I ask for a motion to recommend adoption of Article 4?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That's 5-0 to adopt. Article 5, similar article. This pertains to use of water retained earnings for capital equipment and improvements. You already mentioned the air compressor and the dump truck. Do you want to speak to the cleaning of the tanks?
Sure, and just to point out that water retained earnings, the turnbacks listed on the document I gave you and on the screen, 562, 252 for turnbacks in their budget. It's important to note of that amount, $382,000 was debt service funding, principal and interest that was turned back, because we had planned to borrow funds for the Astor Street tank. We instead used retained earnings to fund that, so we avoided borrowing and were able to save $382,000, and that was turned back. So that's why this much more turned back on water than sewer. And then additional revenue from rates. Again, last year was a dry year. I think we pumped more last year than we had in any previous year, so that all generates revenue on water. On the water, Colonial Drive and Ames tank cleaning, we do periodic cleaning of the storage tanks as mandated by DEP and EPA. They need to be cleaned every 5 years, remove any buildup sediment, and inspections of each of the tanks for any interior issues that we need to address. So both those tanks are due for that cleaning. This will fund it.
All right, do we have sufficient funds to carry this?
We don't, this is one that we're going to have to wait for certified
Okay.
retained earnings.
All right, are there questions on the three items that are encompassed in this article? And if not, may I ask for a motion to table this article till October 3rd?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will be a unanimous vote. Article 6 would be, I guess, the cleanup article that
Excuse me.
any unused free cash from the certified amount to the town stabilization fund. We obviously don't know that amount. Do you want to offer any other comment, or can I move to a motion to
You can
table?
move to a motion. We covered how much is in there and how much we hope to put in.
All right. Is there a motion to table this to October 3rd?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's offered by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's unanimous as well. Article 7 allows the town to use funds from the assessors overlay surplus to fund the 5-year Department of Revenue mandated revaluation of all town real and personal property. And this sum involved in this article is to transfer $145,000. Probably speaks for itself.
It does. They declared $145,000 surplus in their overlay. This is how we have funded the revals in the past, and the 5-year reval is, needs to be done next year, so we want to get a jump on the work, hire a private contractor who will do this for us, and get it going.
Any questions on that
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
as well?
Through you to the town manager, what was the cost of the last revaluation? Do you have any sense?
I'd have to go back and look. For some reason, I think it was somewhere in the $120,000 range.
Okay, all right. Just wondering if it's enough money to make that,
Yeah, she bumped
Inflationary
up, she
pressure.
bumped up the numbers from the
Yeah, yeah,
last
yeah.
time.
all right. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, the motion's offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is now unanimous. Okay, Article 8 takes us to Community Preservation Committee actions. In this particular article, would ask the town to appropriate the sum of $400,000 from the Community Preservation Fund undesignated reserve, and it would pertain to new lights, poles, and associated electrical work at the LA baseball field on East Street. So first and foremost, let me ask if the Community Preservation Committee took action on this matter. I think the chairperson maybe is
I'm not
here?
the chair,
No? Can you speak to that, Mr. Holland?
Speak to Article 8, 9, and 10 that was recommended adoption, unanimous.
By the committee? Okay, all right. So the Community Preservation Committee is recommending adoption. Mr. Montori, anything to add to that particular article?
Just quickly, this is something that the Tewksbury Little League has asked for. Just the ability to, scheduling games is difficult based on the number of fields and the number of teams and players that they have. Lights will help alleviate that. More tournaments that they're having, bringing in teams from other communities and states. They do have a long-range goal of bringing the Cal Ripken tournament, which is a major national tournament, to town, so this would be something that would be needed. The pricing was put together by the Director of Facilities, Vinnie Bomo, and, the light poles are projected to cost $185,000, to install them $125,000, upgrades to electrical and the design of electrical, $20,000. Base, doing, core tests for the bases, $30,000, and then a contingency of $40,000 for a total cost of $400,000.
All right, if there are no other questions on this, can I ask for a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved.
A motion to recommend adoption made by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Article 9, so that's a unanimous vote. Article 9, again, the Community Preservation Committee previously voted to recommend adoption of this article, and it would appropriate the sum of $377,500 from the Community Preservation Fund undesignated reserve. And that would be for the purpose of design, engineering, and construction of pickleball courts and lighting on East Street. And I
So-
think you just gave us a schematic of where they would go.
Yeah, so that's LA Field, where the new lights are going.
Yeah.
And then a little box next to it is where the pickleball courts are going. This was brought forward by Open Space and Recreation to install 3 pickleball courts in that location with lights. As probably we all know, this is a fast-growing sport, if not the fastest-growing sport in the country. Right now, the only pickleball courts we have are being utilized on our tennis courts, and our tennis courts are used a great deal. So this would install 3 courts for $165,000. We need to do site work, $16,400. Lights, which are obviously not as tall as baseball field lights, would be $45,000. To install them, $35,000. Electric upgrades of $10,000. Design, $28,500. We're going to purchase a shed for the electricity, for the lights and supplies, $8,000. Again, we need to do core samplings, $20,000, and a contingency of $50,000. So that's how we come up with the $377,500. All the estimates were put together from professionals that possibly could do the work, and Vinnie Bomo oversaw all of that. We also modeled this after courts that were built in Wilmington.
And am I correct, Mr. Montori, that if I'm looking at this picture, to the right of the pickleball courts, there would remain a tree barrier? Is that accurate?
I believe so, but I'd have to look at the actual design. They could be taken out, but
Yeah, okay. I do
Not to
know,
say it's
I
really
know
gonna-
there's a lot of commentary out in the social world about the noise of pickleball. And if you're having lights at night in the summer, it carries. So if there's a way to retain a barrier, natural barrier of trees, that might be helpful.
yeah, we'll try to do that. If we have to remove them for the installation and put some other barrier back up, we'll do that.
Yeah, it's something to consider. I know there's not a lot of residential, but there is one home across the street, so. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on that? If not, may I ask for a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That's a 5-0 unanimous vote. Article 10, again, $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund undesignated reserve. This was recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to allow for design, engineering, and construction of an outdoor venue next to the Tewksbury Public Library. Any comments, Mr. Montori, you want to offer?
Yes, so this article is going to be amended because we don't need the $100,000. We can reduce that to, I was trying to pull up the application, to, I believe, 60,000. To $70,699.
70,699.
$699. What we're planning to do, for those of you who most likely have attended the free concerts at the library in the summer, in the back of the library, there's a grassed area. We're looking to install a concrete sidewalk leading to the area for $38,784. We are looking to build a concrete pad where performers can set up and perform from. We're purchasing a tent to cover the concrete pad, stage area, for lack of a better word, a term, for $12,050, something that will be put up in the spring and taken down in the fall, and then have a contingency of $10,000 of $70,699. So when we looked at this, we were trying to figure the best way to do it, and the library director and the facilities director reviewed different options and looked at what they wanted to do, and we felt this was the best way to approach it. It'll just give a better area for performances. It will have covering over the performers and their equipment if we have any light rain during or before or after. Just a better access to the area also. So we think it's just something that's worth doing. I told them to really look at it and tell me what they wanted, if they needed, just do this the way they wanted to do it, and this is what they preferred.
Okay. All right. Let me take a motion on the amendment first. Is there a motion to amend the amount to $70,699?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion offered by Mr. Holland, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to that? That's unanimous. And now on the article as amended, is there a motion to recommend to town meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion's offered by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Ms. Wellman to recommend adoption as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. That's unanimous on that one. Article 11, the purpose is to reallocate the balance of funds appropriated for the feasibility study for a new elementary school to be used for the construction of the Center Elementary School to minimize the amount of funds needed to be borrowed for the project. You want to educate us on this one, Mr. Montori?
Sure. So when we originally did the feasibility study for the Center Elementary School, we didn't borrow funds for it. We used a stabilization fund to pay for the study because we weren't sure what was going to happen. We didn't want to be committed to borrowing if there wasn't going to be any reimbursement, if the town didn't approve the debt exclusion. So we used the stabilization fund, $1.2 million. We were reimbursed by MSBA for the amount. And the balance in the account is $628,280.64. And we'd like to reallocate it to be used for the balance of the construction on the Center Elementary School. Right now, there is a deficit in the account of $3.5 million, approximately $3.5 million, and that's not because the project went over budget. It's because we haven't received all of our reimbursements from MSBA. I knew all along we would need to borrow additional funds for the project. We originally thought we would need to borrow $65 million for the project. At the time, I borrowed $60 million because I didn't want to overborrow, and the 65 was just a projection. So now that we're getting closer to finalizing the costs and the reimbursements from the MSBA, we're looking at right now a $3.5 million amount that we would that we have in deficit. The 628 will help reduce that. Once we finalize all of the reimbursements from MSBA and pay out the final cost for the contract, we'll know exactly what we need to borrow, and it'll be less than the $5 million or $65 million. So we'll know that next summer, but this will help reduce that amount.
Okay, if there's no questions on that, can I have a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Motion offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's 5-0. Article 12, this article will transfer control of the Trahan Elementary School from the school department to the town.
So So the school committee voted to transfer the care, control, and custody to the town. This is the article that's needed once the school committee makes that determination.
Okay.
We did this similar article for the Ella Fleming School. They're holding on to the North School for the moment, and they'll make a decision down the road if they want to turn that over to the town.
All right, is there a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved.
Okay, motion offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. Article 13 would then allow for the lease of the Trahan Elementary School within the statutory requirement of 30 years.
Of 30 years, and then Article 14 seeks a home rule petition to allow us to get legislation to go beyond the 30 years, but not more than 99 years. So I used 99 years, seems to be the number that's always used.
Are there questions on Article 13?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if the town manager can talk a little bit about his vision with these leases?
Say that.
Why are you seeking the leases?
Why?
Yeah, can you just elucidate that for the public?
So we've talked about as a group that, affordable housing is an important priority to the board. The Trahan could be used for affordable housing. We don't know. We don't know if there's interest in it, but we're not going to know until we actually put a request for proposals out there. So, and we can't do a request for proposals without authorization from town meeting to actually lease the building. So Article 13 and 14 will allow the board to lease the school. It will allow us to do an RFP to see if there's even interest in leasing the school for some type of housing or nonprofit use. And if that's the case, then the board could, after an RFP and looking at proposals and determining which is the best proposal, could enter into a long-term lease with somebody. It also allows us, if we can get someone to lease the school, to avoid approximately $2 million in cost to take it down. Because each school is projected to cost $2 million to take down, and it's a cost avoidance issue also. But mainly because there is a need for affordable housing in the community, whether it's for seniors or families or however the board chooses to do it based on proposals. But without the authorization from town meeting to lease the schools, whether it's 30 years or longer, no one's going to take us serious in seeking RFPs. The other thing is, I know that a lot of work went into the reuse of the schools, and there was a discussion about the hope and the need for some type of open space and playground in that area. And I think both could work. I think we could look at housing in that area, or reuse of that school in that area, or reuse of the land for housing, and at the same time set aside enough land down there for a neighborhood park with the playground, with the basketball court, with whatever we want to include in it, once we know what the future is of the school, whether it's going to be reused, whether it's going to be taken down and something rebuilt, however the board, whatever proposals come back from the board thinks is proper. It just starts the process. And in the end, we may do nothing, but we're not going to know until we do it.
No, I appreciate you just entering that into the record. So we've had these conversations as a board for a while, but I think it's applicable for folks that might be listening at home or reading the
Absolutely.
stories. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much,
I
Mr.
have
Chairman.
questions, Mr. Chairman. So we are putting it out to lease, but this is not limiting it to affordable housing. It's not something that, like, I mean, I know we had a couple of people that were interested. Sure. We had another community that was looking to use it while they were rebuilding their school.
Absolutely. It
We had
does not
somebody else
specify.
looking at it for another reason. So the offset of saving us a couple of $1 million, if somebody's willing to make that investment into, we don't know.
We don't know. I use affordable housing and nonprofits as an option that the board has talked about, but it could be, this article does not restrict us to that.
That's what I wanted to make clear.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion to recommend adoption of this article.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mackey offers the motion, Mr. Kratman seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. Article 14, as referenced previously by the town manager, pertains again to authorization to lease the Trahan Elementary School. This would authorize the town to seek a home rule petition through the state legislature to increase the term in excess of 30 years, not to exceed 99. Is there a motion to recommend adoption of this article?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kratman recommends, or makes motion to recommend adoption. Ms. Wellman seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. Article 15, request that the town approve as a certified project and allow a tax increment finance plan for a company known as Cambridge Isotopes Laboratories, since the particular firm would be located within the town's economic target area. You want to speak to this, Mr. Montori?
Sure. So we had discussions with the state and with Cambridge Isotope Laboratories about locating to the town from another community that they're in. In addition to locating approximately 80 employees to the town, they would create 15 new jobs. The plan would be to move into 200 Ames Pond. They've purchased both 100 and 200 Ames Pond, but the plan would be to move into 200 Ames Pond, invest $50 million into the facility, and at some point down the road, once the leases run out on 100 Ames Pond, they would invest in that building. But for the purposes of the TIF, we're just talking about 200 Ames Pond and the approximately $50 million they'll invest. The TIF, which is a tax increment financing plan, would give them a reduction in their property taxes based on the value that they invest in the property, not the whole property. So if they have a base value in the property of $1 million, that still gets fully taxed. They only get the incentive on the investment that increases the value above the million. And $50 million is the estimated cost. We have proposed an investment or a TIF to Cambridge Isotopes that would give them a 70% reduction in that $50 million incremental investment into the building in the first year. And then it would reduce by 5% over 10 years. So in the 10th year, it would be only a 25% reduction in the value. Over the life of the 10 years, Cambridge Isotopes would see an incentive of $6.3 million. The town would see an increase in its tax value of $6.9 million over those 10 years. So you can see the benefit to the town. Cambridge Isotope, when we met with them, has had concerns that once they started looking into the cost of renovating the building, it was much more than they anticipated. And frankly, they are still debating whether they're going to move forward, and they were hoping for some relief in the first year for cash flow. That's why the 70% gives them a reduction in taxes and the incremental value worth about $930,000. So that will help them and incentivize them to move forward. We haven't heard back yet based on what we presented, but this essentially is what the TIF would do. This is not the first time we provided the TIF in town. Since I've been here, we provided one with Thermo Fisher, which was actually a little bit longer than this one, but similar numbers. So this is what this article does. There is an agreement that the state is reviewing and will be sending back to us that we will enter into with Cambridge Isotopes. Once I have that, I'll send it off to the board. Cambridge Isotopes will file an application with the state down the road to get approval for their project through Mass Office of Business Development. By giving them this TIF, it not only gives them the tax incentives that we provide, but it opens up other tax incentives to this from the state. Without the town approving this project as a certified project, the state would not give them the other incentives that they would give, whether it's job training, incentives on their equipment, and other things like that. So they need the town as the first step to not just get our tax incentives, but to open up other tax incentives from the Commonwealth. We will have them finalize a local application that just essentially, talks about their project and their investment, and that'll be part of the agreement when we get it back from the state.
Okay, very good. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Through you to the town manager. So my only question is this transferable? If they do all this work, they add all this value, and then they leave after 7 years or something happens, is that transferable?
It really goes with the company, and it's based on their job creation. So on an annual basis, they have to report to us on if they've met the goals that we set forth in the agreement, so it'd be very difficult to transfer.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I know we're kind of required to bring companies like this into town, and, we fought at last town meeting, there was a lot of discussion for keeping and increasing our, these types of areas, and these are the jobs we're looking for. This has been very clear that this is what people are looking for, so I think this is very good. I think this is going to be.
Now, if they sold the company but maintained what they do as a company and still are investing in the building and creating the jobs, that'd be something different. But if they just said, we're getting out of there and selling the building, then the TIF will go away.
Perfect. That answers the question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. Through you to the town manager, just as additional revenue comes in through the TIF, that incremental piece, is that incremental piece added to new growth?
It's added to
every
new
year?
growth.
So you have this kind of increasing new growth that's built in
Right.
versus all being recognized in the
Just be
first
future new
year.
growth and expands the tax base on the
Yep.
commercial side,
Yep.
which we
Okay.
have not seen much of.
I know when we did this for Thermo Fisher, it was very successful. That company has done well and has continued to grow in the community. So I think it's great. Thank you very much.
And the other important part is this is office space that we've not seen any growth or expansion in, and we have empty office space. Warehouse and industrial have been the biggest growth, so this is really a good thing for us. And the fact that they bought both buildings is even better.
Okay. Yeah, we've heard for years that this is what residents want us to try to attract to Tewksbury, so I certainly would be 100% in support of it, and we need to leverage all of the extra work that we've done to make these kinds of tools available, and this is a great opportunity for Tewksbury. So with that said, let me ask if there's a motion to recommend adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion's offered by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye on that, making it 5-0. Article 16. The purpose of this article is to place the noted parcels under the control of the Conservation Commission for the promotion and protection and perpetuity of watershed resources, open space, and wildlife habitat. There are 5 identified parcels. Mr. Montori, do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure. This was brought forward by the Open Space and Recreation Committee. These are parcels that they would like to see protected. This is something they do on an annual basis. Prior to town meeting, they submit parcels and we put them on the warrant. We review all of the pieces of land that they want to protect to ensure that, one, that they are not buildable, that we may want to sell for affordable housing or other purposes. 2, that there's no town use, whether it's a future pump station, drainage, whatever. So we reviewed all these parcels, and none of them meet the criteria of land that we would need, so we would recommend that they be put under the protection of conservation.
Okay, any questions?
I have a
Mr.
question,
Crabbe?
Mr. Chairman. I can see the top 4, but 2347 Main Street, It's on Route 38. I mean, I understand it's wetlands, but there's some land that's available out there. A couple of years from now, if we decide to do something with the fire department or put pumping stations or something else out there or doing some work out there, and this is, we're landlocking this to conservation. I just don't understand why we would do
Yeah,
something
so,
on Route
no,
38.
it does stick out, and we, especially since it's a large parcel of land, but it is all wet. It's all wet, and we looked at it, Steve's in the room, he spent some time on it. There'd be it's no possibility of it being built on or utilized. That's,
So we couldn't put something out there with solar or any other thing, or any kind of the things that are on 38. I know we have like where the Salt Station Fire Station, we now have an antenna out there and things like that. There's nothing that can be put up on that parcel?
There's no,
Mr. Sadwick, good evening.
good evening. There are no uplands along Route 38. Where the uplands are located are on the back side of the parcel, which is accessed through one of the neighborhood streets. So I couldn't see anything from a municipal use. And as far as towers are concerned, any type of communication towers, we're down to 3 providers now. So they're actually, we've been losing carriers when Sprint was bought out by T-Mobile, and so I don't foresee a need in the south for more cell service right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Can I ask for any motion on this to recommend?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Second. Motion offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's 5-0. Article 17 would allow the select board to sell the noted parcels of land in accordance with the town bylaw. And there are, I think, 7 or 8, 2, 4, 6, 7 properties noted. Any questions about those properties?
just quickly, Mr. Chairman, these are all parcels that we've had interest from abutters. I just want to point out that the Carter/Cart Path Road, we had originally authorized that to be sold for affordable housing, but we didn't get any interest for it. Tewksbury Habitat had interest, but then they declined on the property. So there is an abutter that has had interest on it. And if they aren't interested in buying it, then we'll see if there's someone out there that wants to buy it, because it is buildable land.
Okay. Any questions on that? If not,
I have one question. All these locations that we're talking about, there's nothing that has connection to rail trails or anything like that that's out there? Okay,
No.
okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a 5-0 vote.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly on, I just want to go back on that out, just to mention, this only authorizes the board to sell. If something comes up down the road and you choose not to sell, that's up to the board. Sure.
Okay. Okay, Article 18 would amend the bylaw. It's General Laws Bylaw Article 7 pertaining to roadwork guidelines. And it would allow traffic guard or guards to work road details.
Yeah, this is, so we have difficulty filling a lot of the details we have in town for road work or any other specialty work. And we've utilized traffic guards to help out. But we need to amend the bylaw to make sure we're within compliance. So this just allows us to use traffic guards when police officers are not available.
And it's limited specifically to the noted streets only?
Why is that?
That's what the bylaw originally had. They just picked certain streets.
Okay. May I ask for a motion?
I have one question on it. Do we know, is this the, I know when we're using flaggers and other things, there's certain things that are allowed, depending on the speed limit in those locations. Are the speed limits, are we familiar with, are they like 30 miles and below, or is it something like that?
Not sure.
Because that's one of the things that, if the speed limits are above, I believe, 40 miles an hour, I don't think the state allows that to happen. So we need to find out what the speed limits are of these roads to be able to approve this.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Flaggers are only used and allowed in
They're not,
certain
we're
roadways.
not using
I
flags.
understand that, but there's somebody going to be out there that's a traffic guard, they're not a police officer.
But they do go through some training. They're not just hired off the street. They go through training.
I'm just not sure it would meet the criteria of the MUTCD of what the
We can
the
find
state
out.
and feds would allow.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. I do believe that this is called out, that it is still at the police chief or their designee. I do know that this was a blocker for doing a lot of road work that we've been trying to accomplish in town, and that was kind of the impetus for this change. So the fact that it's still being dictated by the police chief gives me some level of comfort there. I don't know the legality behind it, but that does kind of put that in a light. It's not a flagger. It's not just a worker that is being given a flag and told to do the job. So that gives me some comfort there.
Right. Well, I would like to make a motion to approve this Article 18 with the caveat that we check, that we make sure that it, I'm sorry, what is it? That it approves, that it meets the MUTCD requirements for the speed limits that are being used, and we can check that out prior to doing so.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we have a motion to recommend approval with that caveat. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That's unanimous. Oops, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question on that same article. Wouldn't change my vote to the town manager. For traffic guards, do they become part of employees of the town underneath the police department? Are they paid prevailing wage? What's the plan for?
Yeah, they're not paid prevailing wage. It's a rate that's determined for details, so.
Okay,
They're paid.
detail rate?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, moving on to Article 19. This article would amend the personnel bylaw to add the position of Deputy Chief Engineer for the water treatment plant to the library of job titles and wage scale. And you can see it would be, I guess, a step 8, and it ranges from 71,000 and change to 88,000, almost 89,000 on multiple steps. Any comments or questions on that?
Just quickly, this is something we've been working on for a while. We need to create a deputy chief operator, operating engineer in the treatment plant for succession planning reasons with the chief operator. It's important to note that we tried to work with the union to make it part of the positions within the union. They weren't interested or couldn't come to an agreement with us to do it. I told them I was going to put it on the personnel bylaw, and they said that's fine. We're not adding a position. We're just going to, it's most likely going to be someone promoted from within, and that position will be filled. At least that's the plan now. So,
Okay. May I ask for a motion?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Holland offers a motion to recommend approval, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a 5-0 vote as well. Okay, Article 20. Let me get to the executive summary. Okay, this article proposes changes to remove internal inconsistencies as well as inconsistencies with the Wetland Protection Act. The proposed changes also defer some exempt activities to the commission's regulations. The result should be a more streamlined process for residents. And we are talking about Conservation Commission Wetlands Protection, Chapter 18.04 of the town's general bylaws. Mr. Montori, any
So
education?
the chair of the Conservation Commission and our conservation agent is here to present the article. I'm going to leave it to them.
Come on up, gentlemen.
Just gotta go print some stuff. I just gotta go print some stuff.
Yep, okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
I know who you both are, but for the purposes of the person behind the screen who's taking minutes, would you please identify yourselves?
My name is Dan Ronan. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Thank you and welcome.
I'm Joe Fontaine, Conservation Agent.
Thank you and welcome. Thanks for your patience while we work through that stuff. So do you want to give us just like a high-level summary of what is generating this request and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Trying to go ahead?
So basically, over the last few months, we formed a group to go over, it was myself, Joseph, and the vice chair of the Conservation Commission, Evan Walsh. We met, we went through the entire bylaw to basically line by line to make it more in line with the Wetlands Protection Act. And while doing so, we also made, we made a lot of small changes, but we only really made a few larger changes. Even those larger changes, not huge rewrites of anything. So Joe can get more into the details of it, but one of them is like the RDA process, streamlining that so residents don't have to put out an abutters list, which is just, we don't really get too many people coming to the meetings to speak on behalf of their neighbors' projects. It seems to be something that most people are okay with. So we're trying to streamline the process, make it a little bit cheaper for them to go through. But Joe, if you want to,
Yeah.
you have details.
So what sparked this change is just making our bylaw more consistent with the Wetland Protection Act, in addition to just cleaning up the bylaw in general. A lot of the language is not even used. And the commission operates off of the Wetland Protection Act more often than not. So for example, some of the higher level items that we're proposing to change, so what Dan said, the RDA, that's a request for determination of applicability. That's one of the permit application processes that someone goes through if they go in front of the Conservation Commission. It's really meant for really small projects that a lot of times it's just residents in Tewksbury who are filing for a building permit. They're building a deck, pool, shed, etc. They just happen to be 30 feet away from a wetland. The Wetland Protection Act doesn't require them to notify abutters and have a public hearing process. However, our bylaw does require that public hearing. So we kind of want to make it a little bit easier for residents to file that RDA, which is meant to just have a quick pre-construction review with the Conservation Commission. So it's a little bit more streamlined now that they don't have to notify abutters, get an abutters list, send out notices. The second thing is just in general, making the procedures and timeframes for applicants submitting various types of applications and the commission acting upon the applications just more consistent with the act. So for example, our bylaw establishes timeframes that deviate and sometimes conflict with the Wetland Protection Act and its regulations. So again, just kind of making those two more consistent for compliance purposes. Number 3, we did change some, we're not changing the 25-foot no disturb zone or the 50-foot no build zone. So those are the 2 primary setbacks that Tewksbury has, and that a lot of towns have in Massachusetts. We did just modify the performance standards a little bit, but it still maintains the integrity of the 25-foot and the 50-foot setbacks. A fourth high-level item, again, just cleaning it up for the terms and definitions. Again, some of these terms and definitions are left over from when the bylaw was probably first introduced to the town, where they're defined, but just not even referenced, so just cleaning that up. Number 5, just evaluating whether certain stormwater management systems should be jurisdictional. So sometimes stormwater structures like basins, they develop wetland characteristics, but that's not really something that we want to have jurisdiction over under certain circumstances. And the Wetland Protection Act and its regulations do address that. And so we kind of just want to be in line with the Wetland Protection Act and its associated regulations. Number 6, again, just readjusting some language to waivers. Again, pretty much not really changing anything to any waivers that are already in the bylaw, just changing the language a little bit. And number 7 is a structural change where we're putting all the minor, so there's minor exempt activities. So if you build a shed within 60 feet away from a wetland, you may not need to file, because as long as it's greater than 50 feet away, you don't need to file. So instead of having that in the bylaw, we place that in the regulations, where the regulations from a structural standpoint can be modified more easily. Whenever the commission runs into an issue where they do or do not want to regulate something, they can have a public hearing, amend the regulations rather than the bylaw. So I know that was a lot. If you guys have any questions.
I just have one. Has this been reviewed by town council, do you know? Just for any issues that he may have or see?
It hasn't been reviewed by town council,
Okay.
so no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. Has there been a public information session on these bylaw changes?
So dating back to, I think, September of 2022, that's when all of this discussion has happened at the Conservation Commission meetings, kind of just making it publicly available or publicly known that we're interested in changing it. You know, we're going to meet, we're going to talk about this. So that probably dates back to September 2022 if I had to put a estimate on it. And then probably since March of this year, it's been on our agenda, just saying, you know, hey, we're talking about this. Anyone's welcome to come and speak on it.
Yeah. So did you have many people come in and talk about it?
No, approximately 0, but there's maybe one person who attended in September or in 2022.
So what I'm asking is if there was sort of a separate public information session where there was an official attempt at community engagement. There was a press release that went out to the public. There was, a conversation with media to cover what these changes would be. These are substantive changes. I have some concerns about them, particularly with the notification requirements being removed. I have no issue with compliance and building congruity with the Wetlands Protection Act and making it easier for the Conservation Commission to do their job and for you to do your job. I do have concerns about some of the changes, particularly where we have some things that have gone on in town where there hasn't been notification to abutters, and it's blown up in our face, particularly with the contractor's yard that belongs in Andover, so it's not this related issue. But I know that our constituents get testy when they're not notified and then things change on their property. And with this, it could be changes to how stormwater flows. And with this year, we've seen a lot of surprise, if you will, streams develop during, high volume stormwater events. So I'm not sure that any of those issues over here with the rainwater are tying into some of the changes here, but I'm concerned particularly about the abutter notification. And I'm particularly concerned that there hasn't been what I would consider to be a concerted public engagement effort which is, we all know that sometimes lots of folks are up and sometimes people don't know about it and don't come out. But I think just having the work being done on the Conservation Commission, that's the work that the commission does. The public engagement piece is a separate piece that I would like to see before I would want to see this come before town meeting, because it's just, I have a lot of questions about it. I'm sure, some of my colleagues may have some questions, but I'm sure the public will have a long conversation about this on town meeting floor, and that would be my concern. It's a substantive amount of work, that's important work that you and your board have done for the community to make this a more facile document. It's important work. So I kind of am not ready to recommend adoption of this just yet until there's a little bit more, in my opinion, I don't know how my board feels, public engagement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Mackey, you had comments to offer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by giving you guys kudos for doing this. We have a backlog of governance documents that need to be updated and refreshed and made more user-friendly. So I love the effort and you guys stepping up and doing it. The chair and Ms. Wellman identified some of my concerns as well. There's lots of significant changes in here, and to do that without not only public outreach, but like a summary of the changes. When we did the zoning bylaw change, we had significant sessions on outreach, and we got some wonderful informational videos that were put out to the community. Things like that I feel are very important. Now, I would hate to get in front of or block something that is going to make residents' lives easier following the process, but the fact that this is kind of the first time that we're hearing from you guys makes me also a little hesitant to recommend approval. Not saying it's not good work, not saying that we shouldn't continue with this. It's just, I don't know if this is the right time to move this forward. I think there's a lot more informational sessions, reviews by council, et cetera, that need to happen before this moves forward. So I think a couple formal reviews, some informational sessions, and that legal review will save us all a lot of questions, headaches at town meeting, because nobody wants to be up there trying to defend these amount of red lines to the community without significant backing. I read through this and I spend a lot of time in very dense governance, and I still wasn't able to put a few things together. So again, great effort. It needs work that needs to be done. Personally, I just think this may need a little more time to be good to go.
Totally understood. Appreciate your comments. I will just say, like, the removal of the notifications, that would only be for the smaller projects that we don't get any pushback from residents. And I think the idea for the I guess the lack of the outreach is because the zoning bylaw rewrite was so extensive. We thought was much smaller in comparison, so it wasn't as needed, but we totally understand your concern, and we can hold. I don't know if you have a recommendation on how many outreach sessions we should be doing. Can totally.
I mean, one might even be fine if you guys have a good presentation and you're able to answer all the questions and it's signed off by council, and you just got a very tight product that you can speak intelligently to, and there's any curveball questions you may get, you can answer. I think that's kind of the required test in my mind.
Yeah, especially if it can be made like Zoom available. Sometimes we get really good results with that, and then it could be recorded and people could watch it when their time is available.
So I don't disagree with my colleagues' comments and observations, and I do want to commend you for doing the work here, so that's important. I just have one other question, and that is, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. Is there any urgency that requires that this be dealt with in October? For example, if you were to withdraw this and go through what was just suggested and bring this back in the May town meeting, is that detrimental in any way to the town's interests? I know it probably creates some hoops for you folks to administer in that interim period, but is there anything that's catastrophic about working under the existing rules for a few more months?
We've been working under the existing rules since,
time.
since
Yeah.
2013.
I just want to make sure, yeah.
Yeah, I believe there's only one member on the commission who has not worked with this set of, so I don't think there is.
Yeah, so I guess where I'm going is it's not going to hurt the town by waiting a few more months to do what was suggested. And if you're in agreement with that, it sounds like, I think maybe the consensus of the board might be leaning in that direction. I don't know, Mr. Kratman, you have any comments?
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, for one thing, I want to commend you. I've watched many of your meetings and saw a lot of residents come in, just doing a simple, and I know exactly what you're trying to get at, the point you're getting across by watching those meetings, watching the frustration of residents coming in, just trying to do something as simply replacing a porch or a deck, having to send notices. They're spending more money sending notices than probably doing the engineering. There's a lot of fees that go into that type of thing. So I think it's helpful, and especially since you called out our bylaws don't meet the regulations. Those are some things that I think would make it simpler for you to say, we're just getting in line with the regulations. If you explained it to us, but calling that out, showing what the regulation is, and then showing the change of the bylaw to meet that regulation, I think that would make your life a lot simpler, because I really do think the residents want this.
Yeah.
They want something that's going to make their lives easier. I've seen way too many people come in here to just replacing or moving a shed because we're moving a pool. And, have you sent public notices, and it's waiting months to do something as simple as just something needs to be replaced. I know we've had a couple of people come in that wanted to put like handicap ramps on a shed on a deck to get somebody in, and it took them a while to get that because of the public notices and things. So your work has not gone unnoticed. I want to congratulate you and everybody that put in this hard work. This is something we really appreciate, but to agree with my colleagues, I think we just want to get it passed. I think we all agree that you just want to make sure you do the work to, when you go to town meeting, you're going to have a lot of people asking a lot more questions than us. And, that's something, when you get a lot of questions, a lot of things don't get passed when there's too many questions. And so doing that little extra effort, I think will make your lives a lot easier.
All right.
Yeah, I just have, thank you for doing this, by the way. When you do an outreach, can you provide some examples during your outreach? Like take some past history of a guy that wants to put a pool in or a guy that wants to build an addition, and have that in the outreach so people actually understand what you're trying to accomplish. Like if the guy just coming in to put a pool in and, okay, we don't have a butters, but have some examples for the public so they can actually understand, because reading this and with the lines, it's very confusing, But I think if you, as my colleagues, Ms. Wellman said, if you do the outreach and you do provide the examples, people will understand it better and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's probably not what you wanted to hear tonight.
I understand how these things go.
Yeah, and you're hearing from 5 people who've been through this process a few times, so probably good advice. As a courtesy, and I guess what I would ask my colleagues to consider would be a motion to take no action at this time. We can leave it as it is, and we can let them decide if they want to withdraw before town meeting or press forward if they want to. It's up to them.
Sure. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So could I have a motion to that
Yeah,
effect?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Take no
So
action.
the motion to take no action is
Article
offered
20.
by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, so that's unanimous. So your options are still open. They're your options, as they say in Top Gun. You can make the choice, but our recommendation, I think, would be to pull back and do some more community education, and then maybe come back in the spring.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get a much different reception from this board as well. And we want to be in a position to support it. You've done a lot of good work here, so
ton.
I think that's important.
To your point, Mr. Chairman, you made the great recommendation to forward this to our town council prior to maybe having that public meeting to make sure it meets all the requirements of what that, before you have a public meeting, have them check it over.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thanks
for your work.
patience tonight as well.
Yeah.
All right, Article 21. This is last week when we were here. We spoke to the laying out of the street, which in this case is Fraser Lane, and this is a privately sponsored article. This would ask town meeting to actually accept Fraser Lane as a public way. So we heard a lot of information last week as we were laying it out. Does anyone have any further questions?
No.
And I believe it was recommended by the town that we do so. If I don't hear any questions, I'll ask for a motion to recommend adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion made by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye on that. That's unanimous. Article 22, a similar article, is to accept Terramore Drive and make it a public way. We had discussion and there were some contingencies. I don't know if further progress has been made. Is there, Mr. Sadwick, do you want to add any comments to that?
Yesterday, we had staff present from DPW, the town engineer, project manager, met with Jim Hanley, Matt Ginsberg, and Arnie Martell to go over the Terramore Drive issues. And so I think we have a meeting of the minds. Everything that was expressed to the board last week about how they're going to try and remediate that basin was acceptable to the town as far as steps moving forward. And the bit about holding the bond. And then we also had the conversation about disclosure to the homeowners association. So the conversations have occurred. It's more of just how we're going to have this documented on the disclosure and documentation on the bond changing from road construction to covering the cost of stormwater remediation. But just so that, for an update to the board, that the conversation occurred and we're kind of moving forward with it.
Okay. All right. So the board's, I guess, options would be to recommend adoption on that fact pattern, or I guess we could hold off a little longer until there's more clarity around October 3rd, but.
Good.
Right?
Table it like the free cash thing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend adoption. It seems like they've done their due diligence. I don't think we're going to say anything, so I mean, it's up to the rest of the board, but I would recommend adoption of Article 22.
Second. Yeah, that with the amount of rain we've had and the discussion that was had at our last meeting, and that being the key blocker.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr.
Ms. Wellman.
Sadwick. Yeah, I missed it in your comments. Did we get a response from the HOA on their insurance and if they're
No,
aware
that
that
would-
they
no, I don't
are, you have to take over the responsibility
Yeah,
for this?
I don't have that answer yet.
Okay. Can, do we know who the chair of that HOA is?
I don't think the developers have turned it over to the HOA yet.
Does the HOA exist yet?
I believe it does.
Okay.
But I need to check on that. It's just that whole sign-off period that
Yeah,
occurs once everything's done, that
Yeah.
the owners take over from the developer. There's that whole formality that has to occur. So I don't think there's officers yet. I think the officers are still the developers.
do the homeowners know, I mean, this might be something that's buried in a sale document or something, or deepen a mortgage agreement. And I'm just wondering if Mr. Ginsburg has notified them, or if there's been any kind of
He
effort.
has expressed to me that he has notified them, and he has provided some documentation, but I'm waiting on additional documentation as
Okay.
far as notice is concerned.
Can we have, Mr. Chairman, through you, does it make any sort of sense to see if we can get more information for October 3rd in case the board wishes to change its recommendation?
Yep.
So I know it's unanimous, and I believe in it, but in case the residents come forward right before town meeting and there's a change, you know, you can see how town meeting sometimes turns, so. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
we'll look for
I
more.
appreciate that, Mr. Sadwick.
All right, Mr. Savick, I know the town manager's upstairs. The Article 23 would allow the zoning bylaw to be amended to allow the interstate overlay district to be superimposed over the West Side Business District as it is currently depicted on the zoning map, and add to the district the area around I-495 and Route 133 interchange. Do you want to offer any comments?
Sure. So the Interstate Overlay District is it's one of the only remaining overlay districts when we changed the zoning bylaw. And that overlay district purpose was to sit close to interchanges. So when we first introduced it, it was at East and Shawshene Street. And then the next time we introduced it, it was up at Route 38 and I-495. And then we put it over at Woburn Street. So we were kind of getting close to hitting all the exits. And when we started looking at the retail marijuana uses, and we were trying to figure out locations for it, when we looked at that East and Shawshene area, we said that would be a good way of dropping it in there as a use so that it didn't take up the whole industrial district. So that was kind of how we kind of got to the point of using the Interstate Overlay District for retail marijuana. So after we went through the round with the marijuana retailers that were here before you, we said, let's look at some other areas in town. So by opening up the Woburn Street, West Side Business District, and also the Route 133, 495 interchange, it would allow for retail marijuana in those districts as designated by the map, which follows Article
Yeah,
24, I think.
yep.
I do want to note, there will be one amendment proposed because we're adding West Side Business and Office Research. There should have been mixed use also included in there because that picks up a piece on Route 133.
Okay.
We have kind of split zoning up there between Office Research and mixed use.
You don't have the precise amendment right now, right?
No.
Okay. Has the planning board met on this, do you know? Maybe not,
Monday night they are.
this coming Monday?
Yeah, this coming Monday.
Okay. Okay. So I know my colleagues, some of them have weighed in on this particular topic, but what's the pleasure of the board on this particular article at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 23
As currently stated or with an amendment?
with an expected amendment.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend adoption, presuming a subsequent amendment by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll vote in the affirmative too, that's 5-0. And that brings us to Article 24, which are the two maps associated, presuming Article 24 would pass.
Correct.
So Article 24 would be a companion article with the precise areas identified. So I'll ask if there's a motion to recommend adoption of that.
Just before that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When you do these maps, I know you do like big maps from the plotter or something, or if you do for town meeting, can they be in color? So it just this one part in color so it stands out?
Yeah, we can do that for town meeting. Also, there's going to be cleaner maps that will show up in the town manager's handout. So those will be given electronically in color, so that when it's posted online, they'll show up in color.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that when we print them for handouts that they'll be in color.
I think if they're online in color and there's a large one
Yeah.
that people can look at as they're going in, that would be just great. All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 24.
Second.
All right, motion offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That would be unanimous. All right, we've completed the warrant. So just again, a reminder for people here, October 3rd, 7 PM, Tewksbury Memorial High School. If you're interested in the Finance Committee opinions on these warrant articles, they have a public hearing on September 25 next week at 7 PM. Thank you for that help, Mr. Sadwick.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Okay. It looks to me like the town manager has only town council invoice this evening in his portion of the report. Is that correct?
I do.
Yeah, we'll come back to bonds.
There are actually, one town council invoice in the amount of $3,145 from August 16th through August 31st. I'd recommend approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Mr. Mackey, to authorize payment of $3,145. Town council's invoice, August 16 to August 31. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. And I'll note that Ms. Wellman has stepped away, so she's not voting on that matter. Okay, are you prepared at this time to talk about bonds, Mr. Montori?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, so, does anyone want a water?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, actually, I'll take one too.
Send one down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's one more.
Pat?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, there's one extra. You need, okay, you're all set?
So, you want me to wait, you waiting, or you want me to start?
Why don't we wait? And in the interim, I'll ask Mr. Kratman if you have a board member report.
My board is meeting this Thursday, so I have nothing to report this time.
Mr. Mackey, you're going to, okay. Do you have a board report, Mr.
I
Holland?
already did it.
Thank you. All right, I'll come back to my colleagues in a
Well, I
few
can go.
moments. Ms. Wellman, do you have a board report?
Just to say, the NIMCOG is meeting tomorrow night, so we're doing our elections tomorrow, and we had an incident of vandalism on a memorial square here in town that a family maintains on behalf of their mother, and there was a story that was put out yesterday, and I heard from the family member that residents have been putting flowers on the memorial today, which is sort of a nice gesture by people in our community, kind of standing up against, acts of vandalism. So I wanted to commend those people and, express my dismay at vandalism in our community. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll just take a brief recess for Mr. Mackey, and then we'll go to the bonds.
Okay.
All right, we're back. And before we go to bonds, Mr. Mackey, do you have any board report items you want to mention?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to commend the DPW staff and police for the work up on Fifth Street. I've gotten a couple reports from residents about how well that's going and how helpful the police are being getting people into their neighborhoods. So wanted to just give them a shout out.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I just go over one thing before we go to the bonds? A
Absolutely.
couple of things. I just want to give an update on the Catamount Road, Lodge at Ames Pond situation. Obviously, they're still on a temporary solution for water in the area. We are going to start with one of the permanent solutions that we have. We received emergency approval to waive procurement, and we will be tapping into a 12-inch transmission main on North Street, utilizing water mains going through Prospect Hill, out to the booster pump station at the lodge to provide water to both the lodge at Ames Pond and Catamount. We'll be able to remove the bypass pumps that are on Catamount and have them back on a permanent solution for water. At the same time, we will be starting to dig test pits tomorrow. The contractor for the lodge is going to be digging test pits tomorrow to work on fixing the water main that broke underneath the culvert. The plan is to stay above ground and not go underneath the culvert 15 feet below ground. And once we determine, after the test pits, the location of the fix, we will start that permanent solution. So when we're done, we will have two solutions to the problem if this ever happens again. If the pipe breaks at the lodge area, then we can use the Prospect Hill connection, and if the Prospect Hill breaks for some reason, we can use the lodge. So we'll have redundancy. The boiled water order for the lodge was lifted this past weekend, so there's no more boiled water orders. So we'll be moving forward with that. One other issue I want to bring up. The town has had 11 migrant families located to the community at the Extended Stay Hotel on 133. Of the 11 families that were located there by the Commonwealth, there are 20 adults and 13 children staying at the hotel on a temporary basis. The ages of the children range from 0 to 5. There are no school-age children located at the temporary shelter. We spoke to the Commonwealth through our contacts, and they do not need anything from the town. We will have a National Guard contact tomorrow, as well as we have a contact or a program coordinator that is handling the region, because other towns in the region also have families located in their community. We contacted the hotel to ask if there's anything needed that the hotel needs from us. They said no. There have been no issues, and we will just be prepared if we need to assist in any way. But I just want to make it known that we do have families in town, and currently there are 11.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. You want to move to bond sale?
Okay, we have a lot of documents to sign and reading to do in motions, but let me just give an overview of the bond sale. So we had a bond sale last week on Wednesday, and the overall bond sale was for $30,270,926.40. That was for a long-term bond issue. In addition, we had a short-term bond anticipation note for 1 year to fund the deficit for the elementary school, as I mentioned earlier. That was for $3,577,818. $3,577,818. Specifically, the overall true interest cost for the $30.2 million bond issue was 3.48%. The true interest cost for the short-term bond anticipation note was 3.858%. Each are going to need to be approved separately by the board, and we'll get into that in a minute. But why don't let's deal specifically with the bond anticipation note. That's probably the easiest at the moment. So as I mentioned, that was a short-term borrowing for a year to cover our costs that we have outstanding for the Center Elementary School. Once we receive all of our MSBA reimbursements, after the final audit is done, if town meeting approves the reallocation of the $628,000, and we have all of our final closeout costs for the project, at that point, a long-term borrowing amount will be brought forward for the board to approve. What that amount is, it's hard to say. I think it's going to be less than the $3.4 million, but we're not going to know until we get final reimbursement from the MSBA. So there's a document in front of you that I passed out earlier for the bond anticipation note. It has a motion in it that needs to be read into the record. I did ask if we could ask that we accept it and add it to the record, and they said no. So it needs to be voted into the record under the section that says that's under the bidders. We had 3 bidders, and the low bid went to TD Securities LLC. So, Mr. Chairman, I gave a general overview based on what is at the top of the document. That'll be considered as certified minutes, and then I need the vote read into the record.
Okay, before I read the motion, Mr. Montori, the document I'm looking at, it has in the top right, the date of September 22. Should it be tonight?
No, but September 22 is when the money will be issued to us.
Very good. Okay. So I'm going to read the motion, and I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to second that motion. It's a lengthy motion, and I ask for your patience while we go through this, but as you just heard, it's required. And I wish our recording secretary luck. That under, after full discussion upon motion duly made and seconded, the motion will be that under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1, and Chapter 70B of the general laws, and any other enabling authority, there is hereby authorized the issuance and sale of $3,577,818 in general obligation bond anticipation notes, the notes in parentheses, of the town for the purposes of 1, designing, constructing and originally equipping a new elementary school and athletic field complex to be located at 135 Pleasant Street in the town as described on Exhibit B, and 2, financing the costs and issuance of the notes. that all action taken by the town treasurer is in advertising for public sale of notes of the town authorized under Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1, and Chapter 70B of the Mass General Laws as amended and supplemented, and by votes of the town duly adopted as further described in Exhibit B attached hereto, which by reference thereto is hereby incorporated in and made a part of the minutes of this meeting and this vote. And in that connection, preparing and distributing a preliminary official statement dated September 6, 2023, and a final official statement dated September 13, 2023, be and hereby is ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. That the note shall be dated as of September 22, 2023, and shall be payable on September 20, 2024. That the note shall be in the denomination of $1,000 or integral multiples thereof, except for one principal amount of $1,951, and subject to the provisions of this vote, the note shall be in such form as the treasurer and majority of the select board shall determine or approve by their execution of the notes. That the note shall originally be issued by means of a book entry system evidencing ownership and transfer of the notes on the records of the depository trust company and its participants, unless the issuance of a fully registered note certificate is requested by the winning bidder and approved by the town. And in the event of failure or termination of the book entry system, U.S. Bank Trust Company, National Association, Boston, Massachusetts, shall issue replacement notes in the form of fully registered certificates and shall act as bond registrar, transfer agent, and paying agent therefore. That the sale of the notes to TD Securities LLC with a coupon of 5.00% at a price of $3,618,426.24, which is equal to the par amount of the notes plus the re-offering premium of $43,542.05 minus the underwriter's discount of $2,931.81, and resulting in a net interest cost rate of 3.8586590% and a true interest rate cost of 3.7800325%, being the best bid received for the notes bearing interest at the lowest true interest cost is hereby accepted, and the town treasurer be and hereby is authorized to deliver the notes to the aforesaid purchaser or order against payment therefore. That the treasurer be and hereby is authorized to execute and deliver a significant events disclosure certificate, generally as described in the official statement relating to the notes, and to incorporate by reference thereto into the notes such certificate, both in such form as the signatories may approve by their execution thereof, and the obligation of the town contained in such significant events disclosure certificate is hereby approved and confirmed, and that the notes be issued pursuant to this vote may be secured by insurance or by letter or lines of credit or other credit facilities in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 22C of the general laws, as the treasurer or finance director, as appropriate, shall determine, and the select board, the treasurer, and the town clerk be and hereby are, and each of them severally is authorized to contract for and purchase, if necessary, any policy of municipal bond insurance with respect to the notes, and each such officer each such officer may take all such action and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing vote. The next page is not part of the motion, I don't believe, Mr. Montori, is it? No, it's not. Okay. All right, so.
Second.
Thank you. All right, so we have the motion as read and seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. So for the record, that's a unanimous 5-0 vote. We will have to execute those documents,
I'm going
right?
to send them around right now. I'm just going to tell you what you're executing. Okay?
Yeah. You want to do
So-
that first? Yep. Yep. Okay.
So there's the bond document itself that will need to be executed. The vote that you just took and what will be declared as certified minutes need to be signed. Some documents say Board of Selectmen. Others say Select Board. We'll adjust the Board of Selectmen ones tomorrow. But we can cross them out. The bond is the only one, is the most important, that says Select Board. Okay? So those need to be signed. A signature award and no litigation certificate needs to be signed. And a certificate of non-arbitrage and tax compliance document needs to be signed. If the board could make a motion to approve signing all these documents, that'd be helpful.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Wellman to execute the document, second by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That would be a unanimous vote.
The remaining documents need to be signed by the treasurer, and she will take care of those tomorrow. So let me take those and stuff.
To the town manager, I just have one question. I know we're signing off. I have no problem signing the documents, but I do have a couple of questions on the, you're talking about option 1, option 2, option 3 of this, the DPW. Is that going to be brought forward when we go to town meeting and people know what we're actually building?
So when we go to town meeting, we'll discuss we're only going for one option, addendum 1.
Yeah.
Because we have enough money to do the base bid, but I'll explain what that is.
Okay.
I'll put it in the handout.
Thank you. Do you want to pass them all together? Just,
Want to move on to the bond issue?
Yeah. Before you do, though, the document I have in front of me has 28,285,000 on it. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Because I thought I heard you say 30 million.
Okay, so you did the bond, not the ban?
No, the one I read earlier was the 3.5 million.
Yep, so that's good.
But
So
this next
I'm going
one,
to explain that before you do
I
the.
want to make sure I have the right one.
Yep, I'm going to explain that right now. So the next item you need to vote on and approve is the long-term borrowing for the DPW facility and for the water improvement projects, for the water distribution. So breaking them out separately, because there were 3 bond sales that totaled the $30.2 million. The first was for the DPW facility. The true interest cost was 3.424%. The bond issue was for $26.5 million, but we received a bond premium of $1,515,000, which reduced the actual borrowing down to $24,985,000. The bond is for 20 years. Over the life of the bond, we'll pay $10,748,116.94 in interest. Based on the FY24 budget, we have enough funded in the debt service to cover the cost of the bonds. Actually, we have more in the debt service budget than the first-year bond payments, principal and interest. For the water distribution projects, there are 2 separate borrowings. One was for a $1.5 million bond issue. We received a $125,000 bond premium, which reduced the amount to be borrowed to $1,375,000. The true interest cost was 2.206%. It's a 10-year bond Over the life of the bond, we'll pay $345,392.36 in interest. There is enough in the debt service for the Water Enterprise Fund to pay for the bond issue and the debt service in the first year and future years. The second was another bond issue for water distribution, $2.1 million. The interest rate for that was 2.206%. We received a $175,000 premium, which reduced the actual amount to be borrowed to $1,925,000. It's a 10-year bond. Over the life of the loan, we'll pay $482,899.31 in interest. Again, there's enough funding in the FY24 debt service to pay for the bonds, debt service. It's important to note that the debt service, the interest rate on the water distribution projects were lower than the DPW school facility because they were shorter-term bonds. The shorter the term, the better interest rate you get. So when you add up the original, the authorization in total is 26.5 plus the 1.5 and the 2.1, but the reason why your number's different on the vote is because you reduce it by the bond, by the premiums. So those are the bonds that you're going to be voting on next, after the chairman reads the vote, and then I'll have the documents for you to sign.
Okay. So the motion for the record is that under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Sections 8, subsection 5, and 7, subsection 1 of the general laws, and any other enabling authority, there is hereby authorized the issuance and sale of general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2023 bonds, in parentheses, the bonds, in quotation marks, close parentheses, of the town for the purposes of, 1, financing the costs of installing and replacing water lines in the town as described on Exhibit B, attached hereto and made a part hereof. 2, financing the costs of the construction of a DPW school maintenance facility. And 3, financing the costs of issuance of the bonds. That all action taken by the town treasurer in advertising for public sale of bonds of the town authorized under Chapter 44, Sections 8, subsection 5, and 7, subsection 1 of the Mass General Laws, as amended and supplemented, and by votes of the town duly adopted as further described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, which by reference thereto is hereby incorporated in and made part of the minutes of this meeting and this vote, and in that connection preparing and distributing a preliminary official statement dated September 6, 2023, and a final official statement dated September 13, 2023, be and hereby is ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. That the bond shall be dated as of September 28, 2023, and shall be payable on March 15 in each of the years and in the amounts as follows: $1,590,000 in 2024, $1,470,000 in 2025, $1,540,000 in 2026, $1,580,000 in 2027, $1.6 million in 2028, $1,595,000 in 2029, $1,590,000 in 2030, $1,590,000 in 2031, $1,590,000 in 2032, $1,590,000 in 2033, $1,255,000 in 2034, $1,255,000 in 2035, $1,255,000 in 2036, $1,255,000 in 2037, $1,255,000 in 2038, $1,255,000 in 2039, $1,255,000 in 2040, $1,255,000 in 2041, $1,255,000 in 2042, and $1,255,000 in 2043. that the bond shall be in the denomination of $5,000 or integral multiples thereof, and shall be numbered consecutively, and subject to the provisions of this vote, the bond shall be in such form as the treasurer and majority of the select board shall determine or approve by their execution of the bonds. The bonds maturing on and after March 15, 2033, are subject to redemption prior to maturity at the option of the town on or after March 15, 2032, either in whole or in part at any time, and if in part by lot within a maturity at par, plus accrued interest to the date set for redemption. That the bond shall originally be issued by means of a book entry system evidencing ownership and transfer of the bonds, and in the event of failure or termination of the book entry system, U.S. Bank Trust Company National Association, Boston, Massachusetts, shall issue replacement bonds in the form of fully registered certificates and shall act as bond registrar, transfer agent, and paying agent therefor. That the bonds maturing in each respective year shall bear interest payable on March 15 and September 15 in each year, commencing March 15, 2024, at the respective rates per annum as follows. 2024, $1,590,000, interest rate 5%. 2025, $1,470,000, interest 5%. 2026, $1,540,000, interest 5%. 2027, $1,580,000, interest 5%. 2028, $1.6 million, interest 5%. 2029, $1,595,000, interest 5%. 2030, $1,590,000, interest 5%. 2031, $1,590,000, interest 5%. 2032, $1,590,000, interest 5%. 2033, $1,590,000, interest 5%. 2034, $1,255,000, interest 5%. 2035, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2036, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2037, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2038, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2039, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2040, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2041, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2042, $1,255,000, interest 4%. 2043, $1,255,000, interest 4%. That the bid of Morgan Stanley and Company LLC to purchase the bonds at a price of $30,203,970.60, resulting in a true interest cost rate of 3.4808298%, being the best bid received for the bonds bearing interest at the lowest true interest cost, is hereby accepted. And the town treasurer be and hereby is authorized to deliver the bonds to the aforesaid purchaser or order against payment therefore. That the treasurer be and hereby is authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure certificate generally as described in the official statement relating to the bonds, and to incorporate by reference thereto in the bonds such certificate, both in such form as the signatories may approve by their execution thereof, and the obligation of the town contained in such continuing disclosure certificate is hereby approved and confirmed, and that the bonds to be issued pursuant to this vote may be secured by insurance or by letter or lines of credit or other credit facilities in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 22C of the general laws as the treasurer or finance director as appropriate shall determine, and the select board, the treasurer, and the town clerk be and hereby are, and each of them severally is authorized to contract for and purchase if necessary any policy of municipal bond insurance with respect to the bonds, and each such officer may take all such action and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing vote.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in, Ms. Wellman makes the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, now you have a lot more to sign. So you have the certificate relating to certain minutes, which is the vote you just took. It's one document. You have,
Thank you.
you have a signature award, no litigation certificate that needs to be signed, three documents. You have certificate of non-arbitrage and tax compliance document in the amount of $28,285,000 that needs to be signed. And then you have the bonds themselves. I'm only going to send you the bond signature pages to sign, but you need to sign every page here, okay? And that's it.
Okay.
And I do have one policy that needs to be updated for bond counsel, Mr. Chairman, if I can go through that.
Please do.
So I had given the board documents tonight. It's redlined. It's the Finance Department Policy and Procedures Compliance with Regulations Associated with Tax Exempt General Purpose Bonds. The board actually adopted this November 3rd, 2014, but there have been changes to the laws, tax laws that needed to be incorporated into a updated policy, which bond counsel has done, and she's asked for the new policy to be ratified and amended tonight. Just quickly, the policy outlines the responsibility of the finance director or town accountant, whichever we may have, in the reporting and spending of the bonds. So there's a section that talks about the use of bond proceeds, which are the money we get for the bonds, and how they can be used, the use of the property, projects, and equipment related to the project that the bonds are funding, the timely expenditure of utilizing the bonds, in the compliance with arbitrage yield restrictions. And what that means is you can't borrow the money and invest it and make more money than you're paying. So if we're paying 3% interest, we need to spend down that money within a certain time period, and we're limited in the interest we can, in our investment. Can't go put it into a 2-year note making 8% and not do the project for 3 years. You have to spend down within very strict guidelines, so much money within 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, which this policy outlines. Filing requirements on the bonds, reserve funds in anticipation of rebate on any payment requirements, the collection and retention of all documentations relating to the bonds and the projects, and resolution of any problems. The red line areas just add in that we either have a town accountant or a finance director working for the town that make sure we're in compliance, and any updated forms and disclosures or tax laws since this was originally adopted in 2018. And then it adds all of the votes and the things you did tonight are the exhibits. And that's the policy.
Okay.
I have a question on that, Mr. Chairman. So that's all fine and good if everything works smoothly. What if we have a problem in construction or, God forbid, other catastrophe breaks out and construction is unable to take place within a certain amount of time? What do we do?
We just make sure we're not investing the money in something that would give us a higher interest rate than we're paying. We just put in a non-interest bearing account or we do something. Morgan Stanley will manage all of our proceeds to ensure that the investments aren't going over any of the arbitrage rules. So we did it for the fire station, we did it for the school, We did gain interest on both projects. That was part of the general fund free cash, but it was within any arbitrage rules. And that was during COVID, when everything was going slow.
Okay. Any other questions on the policy changes that are being proposed?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the policy changes as recommended by the town manager.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Wellman and a second by Mr. Mackey to accept the proposed changes to the Finance Department policy and procedures entitled Compliance with Government, with Regulations Associated with Tax Exempt Governmental Purpose Bonds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That's a unanimous vote.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. You have everything to sign, and
Okay.
I know it's a lot. Thank you.
Are there more docs? You
Yeah, we got to sign every one of these pages, so.
okay. Thank you.
Mark saved that one for last. Is that the last one?
All right. Let me at this time say that there's no other business on our agenda other than an executive session. We will execute these documents, and at the conclusion of the execution, I will take a motion to move into executive session. When we come out of executive session, there will be no further public business. So we will adjourn the meeting, and I just want to make that known at this time. The purpose of the executive session is relative to negotiation on a contractual matter. So, and in the chair's opinion, discussion of that in open session would be detrimental to the town's interests, and therefore I would ask for a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you. So we have a motion to move into executive session by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well. I have to do a roll call. Mr. Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Grabman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
All those, we are now, so chair votes aye,
There you
I'm
go.
sorry. That's a unanimous roll call vote as well. So we're now going to enter into executive session. And as I said, when we come back out, we will simply adjourn the public meeting. So I wish everyone a good night, and hopefully we'll see everybody on October 3rd at town meeting. This board will be scheduling a meeting probably at 6 PM at the high school for purposes of dealing with those articles that were tabled this evening. So I wish everyone good night.